Hey guys, it's Will here, and tonight I'm going to be talking a bit more about the Fall of Cadia. Now, if this video sounds a little bit quiet, I am trying to keep my voice down because my little boy's asleep and he's already interrupted me trying to shoot this one night, so I'm trying to not wake him up tonight, so if need be, just turn the volume up a little bit. But yeah, let's get into it. So, when the Fall of Cadia came out 2-3 weeks ago, me and Sam did our standard review of the rules, but as we said in that video, the rules only account for about a third to a quarter of the content in here, so there's a lot of fluff, and I wanted to talk a bit about that, but we didn't have time to do that on the night. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about that. So my plan is give a bit of a plot synopsis. Not quite sure how long that's going to take, but there will be spoilers, so if you want to read through this book and you haven't yet, then either skip through, I'll put a link in the description as to where the spoilers are going to end, or you know, go and read the book, come back and watch this video another time, you know, add it to your watch list or something, because there's going to be plenty of spoilers. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what my thoughts on it are, what I thought of it, like a little review, and then talk about where that leaves us going forward for the continuation of the Gathering Storm series, which is the series that this kicks off, and where 40k is going in general with this, because this represents quite a step forward for 40k, I think. So, start with the plot. Well, we're, as you know, the 13th Black Crusade, Abaddon's 13th invasion of Cadia, has been covered in the Fluff for quite some time. They did I think it was called the Eye of Terror campaign, must have been 10 years ago now, where they sort of kicked off the 13th Black Crusade, and it was thought at that point, the fluff-wise, that Cadia had held. It had been badly beaten, but had just about survived. Cadia obviously being the planet that's kind of the big imperial fortress world at the entrance to the Eye of Terror, so it's kind of yeah, the world you've got to get through if you want to lead forces en masse out of the Eye of Terror. So Abaddon has attacked it, and they thought he'd been beaten back, and that's kind of where the book kicks off. But it turns out that what they thought was the 13th Black Crusade against Cadia was actually just the start of it, and a much greater attack was following on from that. So that's kind of where the book picks up the story. You know, Cadia's thought they've survived it, but actually there's a bigger and worse attack coming. And basically that is what this covers, you know, the real full force of this 13th Black Crusade. So this time Abaddon is leading the force personally, where he kind of wasn't so much in the earlier one, and yeah, but it doesn't quite play out like a normal Chaos invasion. There's a few things going down. Most notably, Abaddon has something called a Blackstone Fortress. Now, if you've read or played Battlefleet Gothic, you might be familiar with these, but basically they're these big fortresses that date back to the Dark Age of technology, and they're all, by this point, destroyed or corrupted by chaos, and it's believed this one is probably the last one. And it's kind of a bit like the Death Star in Star Wars, and it's a big giant space fortress, very hard to destroy, and it's got a huge gun on it that can destroy a planet. So that's where we're going with that, and that's going to attack the planet. And yeah, but before we talk about what happens as that's moving into position, the story cuts to a couple of other lines that are building up to the end. So we've got the Mechanicum guy, Belisarius Crawl, who we reviewed the rules for in that video we did before. He's the big Mechanicum guy who's coming with this. He at the start isn't on Cadia, he's like half a galaxy away on some expedition, and he gets in a fight with orcs there, and he's about to abandon it, but then this Eldar Shadowseer appears to him and kind of gets him to just carry it on for a little bit longer, and he finds out something that's going to be quite relevant further down the line. Then we've got Trezan the Infinite, Necron guy. He's making an appearance in this. Now, for those of you not familiar with the Necron fluff, Trezan is a Necron overlord, but he's got a sort of a little habit of collecting things, and by things we mean relics from throughout the galaxy, and not just objects but people, and displays them in his big museum in his catacombs. But anyway, he's alerted to the fact something's about to be going on by the, what's it called, the Bell of Saint Gerastal, which is obviously an imperial ecclesiastical artifact, but he's somehow acquired it in his catacombs because that's the thing he does, and that starts chiming, which is like a herald of doom and something bad's about to happen. And through some other technology he has access to, and some of the allies he has access to, kind of finds out that this is gonna go down on Cadia. So he heads off to Cadia. And the Imperial Fists show up as well. Start of this, they're defending Phalanx from an invasion of, I think it's Iron Warriors. Yeah, Iron Warriors are attacking Phalanx, which is their big star fortress that's in orbit around Terra. But then they kind of, yeah, they just about survive it, although it's been partially corrupted, and so they've had to actually jettison a large chunk of Phalanx to keep the whole thing standing. And then they get a distress call from Cadia, and they know how important Cadia is, so they head off there as well. Jumping back to Cadia, so this Blackstone Fortress is the most initial big threat, because this is going to potentially just shoot the planet and blow it up in one shot. So Creed has kind of got two plans. Creed is the Lord Castellant of Cadia, the main Imperial Guard commander. He's got two different plans to stop it. There's some Space Wolves of the Fire Howlers Company. Let me see, I've got this open here. I can't actually see that. It's oh yeah, the Fire Howlers, who are a particular company of Space Wolves. For more on them, see Curse of the Wolf, and they feature in that. They've got like the one active Imperial ship still mobile in the Cadia system, and they go to try and board this. But meantime, they're also on the planet. They're working on this shield relay that's been damaged in the previous invasion, but if they can get it up and running again, these shields will potentially protect them. Anyway, Blackstone Fortress finally gets into position, and they realise, the Space Wolves have failed, this thing's about to shoot, and we haven't got this shield relay up and running yet. But then, like just before it fires, the guy who, the tech priest who's kind of overseeing the whole operation to repair this shielding system, turns up and finds that somebody has snuck in, killed everyone working on it, but has then installed some xenotechnology to make it work. So he's a bit suspicious of this, obviously, Xenos getting involved, but for the meanwhile the shields are working, and the fire from the Blackstone Fortress doesn't kill the planet. It's reflected back, all is fine for now. But then Abaddon launches his invasion, so we've got the normal planetary bombardment followed by ground invasion, huge chaos army, death, destruction everywhere. Book sort of talks a lot more detail about it, but we've got Sisters of Battle there, we've got Imperial Knights getting involved, there's Black Templars, Space Wolves, Dark Angels. Yes, the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels are actually tentatively getting along. There's still a bit of tension there, but they are working together. And obviously the Cadian Guardsmen, but they're all gradually being driven back. The shield relay gets destroyed, so it's in a position now where this Blackstone Fortress is going to fire again and potentially wipe them out, because the base protecting the shields has fallen. And yeah, things are not going well. But then they finally get some help, and some of the guys who've been coming to Cadia actually, who've been heading there, finally turn up. So the Imperial Fists turn up with Phalanx, and it just in time manages to blow up the Blackstone Fortress before it's able to fire. Sustains a certain amount of damage in the process, but the Blackstone Fortress is dead. For the meantime, that is not a threat. So yay, Cadia's not going to get shot to bits, and on the ground things are going better because the Imperial Fists are obviously able to reinforce, but we've also got Belisarius Crawl's Mechanicum guys showing up, and Saint Celestine, who's the second of the characters from the Triumvirate box, she shows up and sort of rallies the Imperial forces. She's got a whole load of sisters with her, and yeah, things start to head back towards the favour of the Imperial forces. But that doesn't last for too long. Abaddon redoubles his efforts. He's got traitor titans, he's got all sorts of things, and they're kind of Belisarius Crawl at this point has a particular thing that he's turned up to do. Now it turns out that what he's found on this expedition that he was on is that the pylons, because they have similar structures on this world, I think, from what I remember, the pylons on Cadia that are mentioned earlier on, and they've been there for thousands of years and no one knows what they do, no one can sort of get any information from them, they've not been able to drill into them, take core samples, take any energy readings, nobody knows what they do. Turns out he's with the help of this Shadow Seer that sort of showed up at this expedition, found out that they are what's basically holding the Eye of Terror back. So the idea is that these pylons stop the Eye of Terror from expanding more than it is, and kind of keep it in check. So he's trying to use this to his advantage to, you know, maybe turn up the field, push the Eye of Terror back more. But gradually, step by step, the Imperial forces are getting overwhelmed and he's not making great progress. But then, just as it's about to all go horribly wrong, Trezan the Infinite shows up, and the Tech Priest obviously doesn't, you know, wants to shoot him, but kind of Trezan's like, well, you know, hang on, I'm going to help you here. Basically tells him how to get the pylons to work better, and then yeah, the Tech Priest is able to fire get the pylons to fire a beam of kind of warp repellent energy. It's not quite explained what it is, but it basically starts to shrink the Eye of Terror, and the psychers and the demons on the planet start to lose their power. In order to sort of buy enough time for this, Trezan has brought his own forces, but his Necron legions were damaged when that bell went off in his catacombs. So instead what he's had to do is bring a lot of his exhibits along with him. So he's got these Tesseract labyrinths, which is little Necron boxes, and kind of work a bit like a TARDIS in that they can store much more in them than they appear. You know, it's a little box, but you can store a lot in there. It kind of is a parallel dimension in a box. And he's brought a lot of Imperial forces that he's got in his collection in these, and set them loose to reinforce the forces of Cadia. So you've got Ultramarines from before the Heresy, you've got Salamanders, you've got a model that's hinted at as, or a guy that's hinted at as being a Custodes, but it's not specifically stated. You've got Guard regiments, and you've got this Inquisitor, Inquisitor Greyfax, who is the third model from the Triumvirate box. And she has clearly been in stasis in Trezan's vaults a long time, because she's quite frankly disgusted with the state of the Imperium. The Space Wolves are at this point using Wolfen relatively openly, and she's disgusted by that. She's disgusted by the worship of the Emperor. Clearly she's from a time when the Emperor wasn't overtly worshipped in the way he was. She's particularly disgusted by Saint Celestine, who is, as far as she's concerned, a false saint, and I think she'd quite like to execute her then and there, but she's kind of just sort of refrains from doing that because there's a bigger battle at hand, but she's basically resolves to have a reckoning with her once this is all over. So things all seem to start to be going alright for the Imperium. The Chaos Forces are being driven back. Certainly not easy, there's still heavy casualties. Colour Sergeant Krell, who's Creed's sort of like his buddy who has his flag. He gets killed by Abaddon, and things are still going wrong, and they're being driven back. But they are starting to at least, hold them a little bit. But then things go horribly, horribly wrong for the Imperium. Just as they think they might have been able to defend the world, the Blackstone Fortress that's been blown up, basically Abaddon's had some of his what they called warpsmiths, the Chaos Tech Marine guys, working on that, and essentially stuck a whole load of rocket motors to the biggest chunk of it and just fired it at the planet. And obviously having a large star fortress fired straight into the planet isn't good. It starts causing massive tectonic shifts, tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, and all of this obviously makes the planet very difficult to operate on, and the Imperial forces realise Cadia's lost. But most importantly, the pylons that at this point are driving the Eye of Terror back, suddenly they start to crack, the system starts to overload, they can't take the strain, and the Eye of Terror once again starts expanding, not just back to where it was, but to a greater size than it was before. The power of the demons is resurgent, and it's a pretty nasty situation, and they realise they're going to have to evacuate Cadia. What few surviving Imperial forces need to get off the planet. So I think Phalanx manages to get away, and the three main characters from the Triumvirate box all escape, along with a small force of Mechanicum, Templars, maybe a few Sisters, but certainly not a big force by any means. But they get a number of ships off the planet. Creed kind of stays behind to kind of be the rear guard. He's, Cadia's his job, and he's going to defend it to the last, and buy as much time for people to escape as possible. And just as Abaddon is about to kill him, Trezor the Infinite shows up again. Now, up to this point, he's kind of been helping Cadia, because it's not really in his interests for Cadia to fall and chaos to run rampant around the galaxy. He may not be Imperial, he may not like the Imperium particularly much, but it's better than chaos running rampant. But he realises it's also an opportunity to add more pieces to his collection. And by pieces he means historical figures. So he kind of had his sights set on capturing Abaddon and using him as an exhibit, but for various reasons that doesn't work. But right at the end he is able to, basically it's not said overtly, but it's kind of implied that he captures Creed in one of these Tesseract labyrinths, so he can basically take him back to Cadia in stasis and put Creed on display as a museum exhibit, which is possibly a slightly better end than being murdered, because in theory Creed could come back if someone rescues him, but still not really a great fate. Congratulations, you're now a museum exhibit. And basically at this point Cadia is done for. All Imperial forces are dead or have fled. The Eye of Terror is expanding to the point where Cadia is going to be within the Eye of Terror. And it's going to have one of two fates. It's either going to break apart from the sheer force of this impact that's still rocking the planet, or it's going to just about survive and become a demon world. So either way, things ain't good for Cadia right now. Cadia has most definitely fallen. Meanwhile, the survivors of the Imperial forces sort of flee. One thing that I've not touched on is Belisarius Crawl, this tech priest guy. He's got he's got an artifact with him, and it's never really stated what this is. It's something on board his ship, and he is really determined to protect this. It was kind of his mission even before he found this this site that he's investigating at the start of the book. And he's trying everything to preserve this, and essentially the fleet starts to get split up, and one of Abaddon's sorcerers kind of implies to him that this artifact, whatever it is really valuable. So Abaddon's chasing after this Mechanicum ship that's got it on. It's called the ship's called the Iron Revenant, and yeah, it kind of gets blown up, but not before the guys inside. So at this point, Belisarius Crawl, Celestine, and Inquisitor Greyfax are all on board this, and they just managed to escape onto a nearby ice world moon thing. They're still being pursued even across the snows of this ice world, trying to get to a particular place. And again, it's not really stated where they're going, but they appear to have some sort of destination in mind. And then just when they think they've been caught, a whole load of Eldar appear from nowhere. And it's not Eldar of one particular craft world. There are forces from Biltan, forces from Ulthwé, Dark Eldar from Camorra, what they're called, Harlequins. There's a whole load of different Eldar turn up and basically bail them out at the last minute, and they escape through some kind of webway portal. So the question is it any good? What do I think of it? Well, fluff-wise, it's interesting in that it's a different style to what I've seen in the past in sort of codex-style fluff books for 40k, in that I mean, I haven't read Curse of the Wolfen, not the fluff part in any detail, but compared to, say, the other codexes, it goes into more depth. You know, it's not just this battle was fought and these guys won. It talks a lot more about what happens and the individual characters, but obviously it doesn't go into as much depth as, say, a Black Library book. So it's kind of somewhere in between in the amount of detail, and I think it works very well for what it is. You get a feel for the drama and the grand scheme of things. There's certainly some interesting twists and turns. It kept me wanting to read more, which I think is important. You know, something's good if you've got to read it, because I was planning to do this video, I wanted to read it for that purpose, but also I was genuinely enjoying the twists and turns of the story as it went on. Did bog down in a few places with kind of just battle after battle after battle. It just all seemed to be going in the same direction, but there was always a twist without, you know, before too long, so that's good. Obviously the outcome is kind of a little predetermined by the name of the book, Fall of Cadia. Any idea what might happen to Cadia in this? I wonder who might be doing it. Look at the front of the book. So it was a bit a little predictable in terms of the ending, but then also not predictable, because the big surprise at the end, you know, certainly didn't see that coming, and how it comes about. So yeah, I think you know, it's not just a case of Abaddon invades Cadia and wins, you know, which it could have been from the title, and you know, if they wanted to in the fluff just kill off Cadia and start Abaddon rolling forward, it could have just been, yeah, he just invades Cadia with overwhelming force and wipes it out, and there's a lot more to it than that. That's good. So on the whole, I think it's well worth picking it up for a read, particularly because of what it represents. This is the first time that they've really done a big step forward in the overall fluff of the 41st millennium for years. For a long time the clock has been at 1 minute to midnight, and now it ticks to midnight, and we're going to see what happens. You know, is the galaxy going to survive this gathering storm? The Eye of Terror is expanding, Chaos forces have much cleaner access to the galaxy via the Cadian Gate. Yeah, also you've got the Eldar turning up to help out the Imperial forces at the end, which is not something that the Imperial forces are overly happy to accept, but the way they kind of escape together suggests they might have to accept it in order for things to work out in the Imperium's favour in the grand scheme of things, because with Cadia fallen and the Black Legion, and it's not just the Black Legion, Abaddon is leading a force of traitors of all colours. You know, there's Alpha Legion in there, there's Plague Bearers, what they called, Death Guard, there's Word Bearers, World Eaters, Night Lords. They're all getting in on the action. So yeah, this is a big chaos force that's broken through Cadia and now potentially has free reign. Plus, see, with the Eye of Terror expanding, it's going to be easier for demons to launch their attacks. So potentially very dark times ahead for the Imperium, but with this glimmer of hope at the end. And that's the thing. If I think if it had ended just with Cadia's completely screwed, it would have been like, oh, okay, well, that's it then. Abaddon's just going to keep rolling right till he gets to Terror. But we've now got a bit of a, okay, it leaves it on a cliffhanger. What is the motive of these Eldar? Why are they working together? And what's going to happen next? It leaves that question open. Which leads me on to sort of the third thing I want to talk about, which is this series going forward. Now, at this point, today is Sunday the 5th of February, and so we already know the next book in the series is up for pre-order. That is The Fracture of Biltan. And from what GW have said on one of their YouTube videos recently, that book runs side by side with this. It's not a sequel per se, although it's obviously second in the series. What happens in that book is happening at the same time as this, so they kind of both end at the same point. This means that we're not going to necessarily see straight away what happens next, but it's going to build possibly to some big climax at the end. There's a lot of people worrying that these books represent the end times for 40k like they had for Warhammer Fantasy, and GW have come out on their website and said this isn't equivalent, or not on their website, on their Facebook page, and replied directly to a comment about this and said this isn't the end times for 40k. It is a big step forward in the fluff. It's all, you know, they've got this thing going on with the 30th anniversary of Warhammer 40,000 and the potential 8th edition coming this year, but they've said this isn't the end times. They're not going to blow up the whole galaxy like they blew up the whole Warhammer world. They may blow up a few planets, but that, I think, to quote their website, was an average Tuesday in the 41st millennium. So yeah, expect big things, but I don't think that the game is going to completely change to the point where you've got a completely new set of fluff. You're going to get advancements. Advancements, is that a word? I don't know. The fluff is going to advance. You know, it is going to take it to the next sort of the progression. Things are going to change. Things might never be the same again, but they're not going to be completely rewriting everything and scrapping it, because that just wouldn't make sense for the product. I mean, what they did with Warhammer Fantasy was they had a game that a lot of people loved, but was dipping down, sales were dying off, it wasn't going where they needed it to go as a business, so they had to do something drastic. With 40k, from what I understand, sales are pretty good, there's a lot of excitement, it's still one of the biggest selling war games on the planet, so injecting some new life into it with some new fluff and a new addition is good, but not killing off the whole thing and starting from scratch. They're just not going to do that. I just cannot see them doing that with 40k. Further down the line, where is this Gathering Storm going? Well, we know that Fracture of Biltan's going to end at the same point as this, and then Friday just gone we had the big leaks of the third book. The name is escaping me at the moment, but we know that Gulliman is back. Rabute Gulliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, who's been in stasis for the last 10,000 years after being mortally wounded by Fulgrim, has somehow managed to recover while in stasis and is up and about, and Cypher seems to have something involved with that as well, and there's a Grey Knight dude, so it's very interesting because obviously this isn't, the next book, Fracture of Biltan, isn't going to be directly advancing the story, and I have a feeling that this next one is also going to run along at around the same time as this, as opposed to being a sequel. Because if you get out a map of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, you've got, up at one corner, top left-hand corner, you've got Cadia and the Eye of Terror. Bottom right-hand corner is Macragge, which is obviously where Guilliman is at least starting. So I would imagine that the majority of that book is going to take place in the area around Macragge and Ultramar, which means that it's not going to be necessarily intertwining with this. It may, like Fall of Fracture of Biltan, draw to the same end point as well. So you'll have 3 books that kind of run in all run side by side and come to the same point, and then from then on I can see them doing a 4th book that may be the next step on. It may be the whole climax of the thing, I don't know. I'm just theorising. It's a possibility if they're going to run it as a series of 4, or it might just be the next step. We don't know. It's going to be exciting to see. I'm really excited about where this is going, because it's bringing things forward without killing off too much stuff. I mean, a lot of forces have taken severe casualties, but no one major has been irrevocably removed from the fluff. Only named character complete casualty here is Colour Sergeant Krell, who is an add-on, as it were, to Creed. And Creed is out of action, but he's not strictly dead, so, you know, there's still plenty of opportunity for to represent games with the guys in here. It's not like, oh well, he's dead now, can't really justify using him in a fluff-based game. No, everyone's still going, and although Cadia is lost, it's not like Cadians are completely dead, because a number of them escaped, and they have such a dispersion throughout the galaxy. The forces of Cadia can crop up almost anywhere, because it's raised so many guard regiments over the years, so you can still totally use your Cadian army and not feel like, oh, I'm using a dead army. You know, they happened to not be stationed on Cadia at the time it fell. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good. I'm very... Hang on, I'm stalling here. Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes. I'm really psyched for Fracture of Biltan, actually, because yeah, I play Biltan Eldar, and I'm building a Dark Eldar force at the moment as well, so that, you know, Fracture of Biltan is going to allow me even more than I already do to interlace them together, from what I'm reading, and you can bet your ass that when that book comes out, me and Sam will be doing a review on it. I've already pre-ordered it, and I'm properly excited. My only concern going forward is the rate that these books seem to be coming out. We had Fall of Cadia in January, Fracture of Biltan in February. It looks like we're getting the 3rd one in March, and that's quite a rate to be going, and, you know, it's kind of like I want to have the time to read it, play with it, build armies from it, have games with it before the next part of the book comes along. So I hope that maybe it's kind of a boosh, 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 3 quick ones to get you started, and then the pace slows a little bit. Maybe have like another triplicate of 3 further down the line, because if they keep this going all year, that's, you know, it's £30 a month on books alone. 12.30s are a lot. It was over £100. Or well over 100. 10.30s will be 300. It's going to be 360 quid if they do one of these a month for a year, which is a hell of a lot of money to spend on books without actually having bought any models. So I hope the pace does drop a little bit. Maybe get these 3 out there to get a real feel for it, and then have a couple of months off, just so our wallets and our time can catch up. But anyway, I'm starting to waffle here. Hope you guys find this video interesting. If you've got any thoughts on where this might be going, then yeah, leave them in the comments section. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.